In this episode, our esteemed guest Anthony Orr, armed with 30 years of experience in the IT industry, guides us through the complex world of service level agreements, SLAs, and the evolving landscape of customer experience, XLAs, questioning the effectiveness of SLAs in driving positive behaviour and their efficacy in truly delivering value to customers. Anthony shares anecdotes and industry wisdom, highlighting the importance of aligning SLAs with organisational capabilities and customer needs. We shift attention to the concept of experience level agreements, or XLAs, which prioritise the holistic customer experience over mere metrics. Anthony explains how XLAs encompass not only service delivery, but also emotional well-being and satisfaction. He challenges traditional outsourcing practices and advocates for a customer-centric approach to crystallise service experience and excellence. He emphasises the need for organisations to prioritise employee experience, recognising its direct impact on customer interactions. Join us as we navigate the challenges of combining technology and human experience with organisational strategy in the pursuit of organisation excellence. Welcome to this episode of Implementing Best Practice in Business. We're here to help you and your organisation understand and implement global best practice to help you face the business challenges of today. Join me, Richard Pharro, CEO of APMG International, in talking to leaders and practitioners who have applied these frameworks and practices to boost their productivity. They're here, willing to share their knowledge and experience to help you learn from them so you can do the same to make you more competitive in today's market. My guest today is Anthony Orr. In over 30 years' experience in the IT industry, Anthony's worked with many organisations on activities spanning IT strategy, organisational change and technical domains. He is currently the ServiceNow Innovation Strategy Advisor at CDW, where he's driving forward-thinking initiatives supporting global activities. Anthony is a renowned ITSM thought leader and has written several books on topics including service management, business agility, data analysis, DevOps and cyber resilience. He is also a member of the ITAM Forum of Experts and is especially interested in the people aspects of ITSM and how he can give something back to society. Anthony is also a practicing hypnotherapist and author of 2 books on this subject. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Richard. It's such a joy to be with you again. I always enjoy talking with you, working with you, and just socializing. It's been too long. I just can't. Hopefully, we won't take this long again to meet and talk. So, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. You got such a breadth of experience and a range of interests. I'm sure our conversation is probably going to touch on those as we progress. But I'd like to talk to you about service level agreements. So SLAs have been around for a very long time. In your experience, do they change behaviour for good or for bad?
Well, really both depends on how they use. When used effectively, SLAs can really set clear expectations, drive accountability, especially within IT, ensure services meet agreed standards and so forth. But we've known, for example, I've been in situations where SLAs have been put in place and the organization didn't meet the SLA. So what did they do? Instead of trying to improve or figure out what they were meeting, they saw what they were meeting. So they changed the SLAs so they can always meet it, so they can get their bonuses and things like that. But what's missing from that? The customer, and the reason why you have the SLAs in place and so forth. So it's not just about meeting metrics, that it's more about delivering value to customers. And that's where sometimes SLAs fall short. And when we even think about that, one of the things that, from a ITSM practice, we always tell people SLAs are underpinned by what the organization really can do. The OLAs, the underpinning contracts and so forth. And you see organizations sometimes don't do that mapping. And then they mix up even what a SLA is relative to OLA. And then it can lead to a lot of negative outcomes and perspectives with the company and then everything else. And then at the end of the day, again, like I say, it's about customers. So the customer be going, wow, you gave me this SLA, and we had heard this for probably over 20 years, Richard. You gave me this SLA at 99.5% availability, and I'm still not happy. Can you give me the 5 nines that I heard about? Because what did we miss? We missed when the customer needed the service. We missed the elements of warranty and so forth relative to that SLA and what it was supposed to deliver. And the customer go, well, the system was down on Friday when I was processing a major production run. It was up all the rest of the time. And you say that you met my SLA? I don't understand SLA then. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's what happens with SLAs. So, and the other thing with SLAs, Richard, I think a big challenge with them is really, one of the things that you all focus on is really educating people around best practices and so forth. A lot of people don't pay attention to those things. They go take the best practice classes and then they don't implement them. They just go by gut feeling, or it's this thing, the shiny thing called SLAs that we have to do. And they just throw it over the fence and say, this is SLA, without really understanding, the customer impact and so forth. The SLA itself, when I help customers with that, I always tell them, I say, there's really different parts to it. For example, there's 2 parts that they sometimes don't think about. And we've talked about this in the best practice books, the service delivery side and the service support side, of the SLA. Not just an availability percentage, but how do I deliver the service? How do I support the service? And does the customer agree with this? And then there's different types of SLAs. One SLA doesn't apply to everything. And what you also see, that a customer create an SLA and they say, oh, that applies to everything. No, it doesn't. And it applies to every customer. No, it doesn't. They're all different at the end of the day.
But I understand that the industry is moving on. I mean, I've seen a lot recently about experience level agreements as coming in, particularly for people doing managed services, because as you say, it could be up for the majority of the week, but if it's not available when I want it, my experience is negative. So what is an XLA and how would you measure an experience level agreement?
Yeah, so an experience level agreement is about that, really the activities that make up that experience that the customer is having. And this is something we really been talking about too, but for a long time, but we didn't put it in the context of an experience. We put it in the context of process and things like that. But what it starts to do, just like where SLAs were being challenged, was really what I was saying earlier with the customer perspective, was now prioritizing the customer experience. Saying the customer experience matters. But Richard, it has always mattered, because one of the things that we said back in the early days, we said if a customer has a bad experience at the service desk, no matter how good the product is going to be, more than likely they're going to look for an alternative. So we're going to focus the service desk on making sure when that customer or user calls in that they have a good experience. We have a good conversation with them and everything else. We apologize and all that type of stuff. But now with XLAs, when elevated that, we say it's not just the service desk. It's about the service itself, which includes the service desk, includes everything that customer experiences when they actually engage with you at the end of the day. So in XLAs, we start measuring, really the satisfaction with the experience, how productive they are, their well-being, at the end of the day, the sentiment analysis, the understanding what they feel at the end of the day, which is like, we're going to measure feelings. Yeah, that's about experience level agreement, measuring the feelings that people have, rather than just meeting service level targets, SLAs, and so forth. And we really want to understand the desired experiences. One of the things, Richard, that I talked about before this really became a big thing in the market, I think I presented in Australia one time, and I said there's 2 key processes that are missing from ITIL. I said one is experience management, the other one is engagement management. I said we have to understand the different engagements we have with the customers and the experience that they have. I said we don't talk about engagements like we should. I said, but they come to us in different ways, and we sort of start talking about this as an omni-channel type experience, saying, well, the customer wants all the same capabilities no matter what channel they come to us. No, not necessarily true. They want a different experience. Sometimes they want it faster, sometimes it be slower or whatever, but we need to understand that so we can make sure that we design the experience appropriately. Another thing that happens with XLAs that organizations should understand, sometimes in the improving experience, you don't have to do anything with the technology itself. The technology can stay still. You don't have to invest in the technology, but you have to invest in the people's perspective for things or things outside of the technology, so they get a good experience. And then here's a hypnotherapy perspective on this. When people have good experiences, one of the things that happen, they lose track of time. When people have a bad experience, they count the time. They say it's time for money. Man, you're wasting my time, da da da. It takes too long and everything else. But when you have a good experience, you lose track of time. Something may have still took the same amount of time using the technology, but now that I changed the experience and changed the perspective of the experience by engaging the subconscious mind and the way that we think and everything else, they go, oh, that didn't seem like it took 30 minutes. It took 10 minutes, much better, even though it still took the same amount of time because I changed the experience of what they were going through at the same time. Hope that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, Anthony. The way you described experience level agreements, is this something the airlines have been doing for decades, where you get coach and you know what you're going to get and you're treated appropriately. You then get premium and you're treated, and then you have upper class or first class, whatever it is these days. So the way you described it, it's not just the product that you provide, it's the way you deal with the customers. So the customer has a much better experience. You might be paying $5,000 for a better seat, but you're collected at the front door and driven in a limousine to the airport, which you could have done anyway for $50 or $100. And so would you equate experience level agreements to something like the airlines did, or am I completely in left field here?
No, I think you're right, but at the same time, I think they can even improve on those experiences at the end of the day by measuring them and really understanding what the customers really want versus what they think they want. Those experiences are wonderful. I've been in different classes of service on the plane, and of course, I like everybody the better class of service. But sometimes, Richard, depending on the airline, it's not that much difference. So they never ask me what I thought about it sometimes. And then when they do ask, they don't take the data and really understand all the different activities and stuff so that they can improve the experience. But another thing too, related to experience levels, I think that organizations should understand. I actually think there's a higher level beyond experience. Just like, we say SLAs, then a higher level above SLAs is XLAs. And above XLAs is really a service value or really understanding the value of a service. Then we look at different type of metrics, like things like customer lifetime value, churn rate, retention rate, and things like that XLAs sort of sometimes don't address. So because I can have a good experience, and then 6 months later switch vendors, go to a different company, and so forth. Or if that organization has did a great job with experience management and branding that experience, like not just airlines, but even in the United States, some retail stores do that. So when you walk through the door, you're like, whoa, that was a great experience. I can't wait to come back to this. So next time I go shopping, I'm going there. So you become, that lifetime customer versus anybody else's experience that they give you when you go through that. So I just think there's a higher level that we have to pay attention to, which is understanding the service value at the end of the day from a longer term perspective than just the experience. And I don't think SLAs really do a good job and today with service value versus what I just talked about with just understanding experience level agreements. And so we need to elevate that a little bit more in the market. But one other thing, Richard, we do it, but we haven't connected the pieces together. So organizations pay attention to things, customers' lifetime value and everything, but are they connecting it to XLAs and SLAs and OLAs and the whole value chain of things and how they work together?
That's an interesting point, because just reflecting on what you're talking about, we have a company that does our audit. Our experience is very good. Their service is very good. We've had them for 20 years. Now, why would we actually go and look for an alternative supplier? So to your point, we're above that XLA. They deliver what they have to deliver. They turn up on time. They're polite. They interview people as they should. And then each year you think, do we need to reappoint the auditor or do we change the auditor? And of course, in a lot of places, you have to change the auditor. But if you're getting a really good service and you've got that relationship and it's actually working positively and honestly, then why can't you continue with it for that very reason that you said? But often corporate standards say, no, you've got to change.
Yeah, and you're right. And as you talk about that, it just reminds me of, going shopping with my parents or my grandparents, and they go, nope, don't get that brand, get this one. I always use that one, even though it may be the same. And you look at the ingredients on the back, and from a generic perspective, nope, that's what I want. And that's what we want within organizations too. At the end of the day, we want the brand recognition and everything else. But as you mentioned, sometimes, because things change, we have to change, relative to the providers or the suppliers that we have, even though we had a good experience. But the best thing to do in that case, Richard, is actually, if I had a great experience with somebody, I go talk to them. I say, hey, we need to talk. I say, based on regulations and stuff, I'm sort of being a need to change because of these reasons. Can you help? Can we still work together? Or are you not interested anymore? Because I had a great experience with you before, and I, for the last 20 years, and I look at you as having brand recognition within my organization for delivering and supporting great services for what we need.
It's that bravery, isn't it? That's open and honest conversation with somebody to say, look, we've got to do this. What can you do to help? Which, as you say, is that experience plus that, unfortunately, I think many organizations don't have. But, with experience level agreements, do you think we're going to have to redefine service excellence in the realm of IT service management? Is there another definition coming so people can sort of really understand what's required?
I think so. I think that definition is based on what we were just talking about, really understanding service value to customers over the long term. Service excellence is about really creating meaningful, and I put that in quotes, meaningful connections with customers, their users, anticipating their needs, not just reacting to their needs, delivering things that are personalized, empathetic. That's a key thing too, I think, to use when we start thinking about service experience, that we really start thinking more about our relationship with that customer. For example, there's companies I've worked with, and they'll tell me, they say, Anthony, we got different levels of suppliers, different levels of relationships with our suppliers. Some are strategic, some are tactical, some are operational. The strategic ones we really pay attention to because they are very important to our business. So if we reverse that somewhat and we think of our customers that way too, we would want to have relationships that are more like a marriage versus a casual relationship from an operational perspective, so that we start defining customer excellence not just for investments of running the business, but growing the business and innovating the business, and then even helping fix the things that are wrong, so that our investments, related to service excellence sort of change as relates to what we started to think about as we think about these relationships that we need to build for service excellence, which is related to the experiences and then the overall service value that we're giving to the industry for those customers that we're serving at the end of the day. And then we have to understand, again, where are they? Whether we're a company, we have strategic relationship or just operational, His operational stuff is very commoditized, and we just replace them all the time. But the strategic ones, we want to nurture them and everything else. So we really need to figure out the right balance there related to the things that really matter to our organization and what matters to the customers that we want to keep and retain. Just like I was talking about earlier, customer lifetime value, the churn rate, retention rate, and so forth. So service excellence are really about connecting with those type of metrics too, based on bringing all that stuff together.
Anthony, I have a slightly different view of that. I take the logic of what you say about strategic partners and operational partners, but we're getting back to a post-COVID world, so offices are opening up, more face-to-face meetings. Often our first engagement with an organisation is the security guard or the person on the reception desk. If they don't treat us with what we are expecting, if they don't treat us with the respect that we think we should be treated with, we immediately have a negative view on this organisation, regardless of scale or the value of the contract we're going to see them about. So taking your earlier comments about experiences about the people element, surely it's wherever there is a touch point between one person within our community, our organizations, our subcontractors, with our customers, they all have to be at that peak level of respect for the customer and engagement with the customer.
Yep, you're so right. That's why I think you see in the industry so that we're starting to expand and not just talk about customer experience, even though we didn't mention this earlier, but employee experience. And we know employees who have a good experience deliver better customer experiences. But we have to get them to understand how they deliver better customer experiences, and we got to make sure they have a good experience at the end of the day. Otherwise, that security guard that you're talking about, maybe he really doesn't like his job, he's in the wrong place and everything else, or he has this demeanor that he feels he has to be authoritative and everything and treat people bad so that they understand he's the boss and stuff like that, which is not what he needs to do in order to retain our customers and give them an overall good experience and a perspective of the company we are and who we are and how we really want to, approach our customers. So with that, one of the things we do have to focus on is employee experience too. We have to understand, what their needs are and everything else. And we sort of know this too, Richard. I tell you a story. Long time ago, I had a part-time job. I was actually working on like a service desk and so forth. And I'm working at the service desk and I'm doing credit applications and all type of things and so forth. One of the things that they did to our desk in our little cubicle, they put a mirror in the there. And they said, before you pick up that phone, look in the mirror and smile, so that you change your perspective, so that your voice tone changes and everything else. But that mirror is always there, and you see sometimes people didn't pay attention to it. But when I thought about it, I said, okay, let me try this. I said, oh man, then my voice, even though I thought I was always nice on the phone, but I just put myself in that frame of mind to be customer focused, and so forth, where other people sort of didn't. So that employee experience and the training behind it matters at the end of the day from everybody in that overall value chain, from everybody who touches that customer, especially, even the people on the back end that don't touch the customer, they're supporting those other employees and stuff. We have to make sure that we're working together in a collaborative way, coordinated way, and at the end of the day, they're just not compliant with their jobs, but they're more passionate or compassionate about their jobs and really want to make sure they do the right things. One of the things we used to talk about a lot too, Richard, even from an ITSM perspective, we used to say, there's operational projects, but are they adding value to the organization? No, are they meeting the strategic needs? So we had to make sure that these things that we do underneath the operational things are really addressing our strategy. And we have a strategic initiative to make sure that we have good customer experiences. We got to make sure that things underneath are supporting that also, which are those employees.
With the growth of experience level agreements and the focus on the customer and how the customer feels about, you know, their time that they spend with our product or with our service. What impact do you think this is going to have on the way large organizations outsource their customer service support? Usually they outsource it to the lowest cost provider. So do you think we're going to see a change of bringing it back on shore, recognizing the greater value of those people, and a whole change of attitude from what we've been seeing over the last, say, 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, and I think that happens with some organizations now, especially when they outsource things that are really considered strategic, like we talked about before. If they outsource operational things, they don't pay much attention to it. But when those outsourced things starts really affecting their quality, their value, and their alignment with what I call their brand promise, and what they're really trying to do as an organization, they're going to feel a lot of pain because they're going to have repercussions for delivering standard services at the end of the day, bad experiences and so forth. And people are going to run. Only time they don't run if they don't have an alternative. If they're the only supplier in the market for a certain product or service, they say, how to deal with this. This is terrible and everything else. People talk about that in relationship sometimes to government services because you can't go around them sometimes. And sometimes you have a bad experience. I say, but in public services, those are opportunities for emerging suppliers to get in the market. And today, as we know, with cloud technologies and stuff like that, people can get into markets really quick when they see gaps and challenges with things that customers are having related to an experience to overall improve that. Because we all, at the end of the day, Richard, we want good experiences, we want good products. But like I think I said earlier, if we have a substandard product and a bad experience, we go, or we have a great product and a bad experience. That's what I really mean. I'm going to switch companies. I'm going to go somewhere else. And I've done that personally in the past. I'm like, this experience was terrible. I said, I like their product, but I'm going to the next one, which is good enough, so forth. So I think, really, when you think about outsourcing, organizations have to be careful that they don't compromise who they are and the brand that they're trying to create and so forth. Then again, they have to think more, related to the overall value chain of the services that they deliver. Is this a strategic, supplier? Is it a tactical supplier or operational supplier? If it's a strategic supplier, you have to be very, very careful with compromising your quality and your value of your products and services by trying to go low cost. And sometimes you don't have to go low cost. You don't have to think about the cost in that manner. You can negotiate the cost. You can figure out the services that you really need, because sometimes we over do things. We get stuff that we don't even need, especially with our SLAs with those suppliers. They always mismatch and out of sync and stuff. And we thought we'd pay for one thing and we're getting something else. And so you really have to have good expertise around negotiating those type of things and getting to what you really need so you can deliver quality and get to the right cost of your service so you can get to the right price of your service, for those customers.
Anthony, fascinating. It's been great talking to you. I'm sure we could have gone on for a lot longer, but thanks for finding the time in a very busy day to talk to me, and fascinating the relationship between hypnotherapy and service management and customer engagement. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. And anytime you want me back, I'm here. And I tell your audience about the experience I had with you that just was so meaningful. And you may have forgot this. And Richard, we were in Europe. I forgot where we were actually at, but I was traveling and it was my birthday. You probably remember now as I say this. It's my birthday. We're sitting around the table, we're having dinner, and all of a sudden the band says, we'd like to sing this next song to Anthony Orr and wish him happy birthday. I'm like, what? Then I found out it was you that went up and told the band to sing happy birthday to me. That meant so much to me. Now, when you start thinking about experience, that made that whole experience of me being away from family and everything just amazing. I was so happy that night because you took that little effort and had the band sing happy birthday to me that night. It was, no, I'll never forget it, Richard. Thank you. I think I told you thank you that night, but I want to let you know, even though it's been, I don't know how many years, that experience, this is experience management, is still with me, and it's going to always stay with me. So thank you again,
Thank you. Thank you for listening. We're always keen to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. You can find all the information in the show notes below. Please visit apmg-international.com to find out more about our accredited training and the certifications that support them that are related to the topics discussed in this series. I hope you've enjoyed today, and I look forward to you joining future episodes while we continue our exploration into best practice and the benefits it brings to global business. Thank you.